James Gunn's Superman and Zack Snyder's Man of Steel are put to the test in this direct comparison between the two directors and their universes. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. I was one of those people who thought that no one could ever beat Henry Cavill's portrayal of Superman in Zack Snyder's DCU. However, looking at the James Gunn flick, I think that David Corenswet is indeed the better Superman in terms of almost everything. James Gunn's Superman has been released to the world, and the reviews have been great. Although many doubted Gunn's capabilities for handling such a big IP, including me, the director has proved himself again with his abilities and the will to run the DCU. After watching Superman, we couldn't help but compare Gunn's take on the classic superhero versus Zack Snyder's version in his 2013 film Man of Steel. Well, here's the definitive comparison about the two Supermans and which of the two directors did it better. Although Amy Adams' Lois Lane was supposed to be the tough journalist who doesn't need anyone by her side, she ended up being just a love interest for Henry Cavill's Superman in the DCU. The Superman ending explained what happened to Ultraman and Lex Luthor. Being the symbol of hope, James Gunn's take on the iconic character was much better than Zack Snyder's darker and grittier take in his DCU universe. Henry Cavill's Clark Kent looked like he was fighting for his survival in Man of Steel and the DCU. However, David Corenswet's Superman felt like he was fighting for his love of humanity and was hopeful about Earthlings, not just himself. Considering how Clark Kent was always raised as a character who would put humanity first and himself later on, I do believe that naivety was seen on David Corenswet's face as he assumed everyone on Earth to be a good human, unlike Henry Cavill's Man of Steel. Hence, I think that David Corenswet is the better Superman of the two. Although the role of Jor-El and Lara Lor-Van was portrayed by Bradley Cooper and Angela Sarafian in James Gunn's Superman, they weren't as good as Zack Snyder's casting in the 2013 film Man of Steel. Ayelet Zurer and Russell Crowe had a phenomenal performance as Superman's biological parents in Man of Steel, especially how Ayelet Zurer's Lara Lor-Van was shown as a ferocious woman who would do anything to defend her son. The video message from Bradley Cooper and Angela Sarafian served as a key plot point in the James Gunn flick. But, for me, I think that Zack Snyder did it better with Man of Steel. With less and less screen time, Amy Adams' portrayal of Lois Lane was reduced to being a damsel in distress rather than helping out Superman. In the case of the DCU flick, Rachel Brosnahan's portrayal of Lois Lane was as iconic as it can be, thanks to James Gunn's comments. Throughout the movie, there has been no single scene where David Corenswet's Clark Kent saves Lois Lane from a calamity. Instead, it's Lois Lane who ends up rescuing Superman when things get tough for the Man of Steel. Naturally, Rachel Brosnahan had the better portrayal of Lois Lane than Amy Adams. Songs for the fight scenes in the James Gunn flick were quite iconic, as the scene of Mr. Terrific fighting off everyone while the music amps up for the audience was simply breathtaking. The music for Man of Steel was composed by legendary composer Hans Zimmer. Although the composer refused to use John Williams' Imperial March, the composition for fight scenes and intense moments was done better by Hans Zimmer. Despite a controversial choice of not using the Imperial March, the point for the best music goes to Man of Steel. James Gunn has a knack for adding songs from the 60s and the 80s into almost every movie that he has ever directed. Of course, choosing to use a new version of John Williams' Imperial March was the best decision that composer John Murphy made for Superman. There is more to the movie than meets the eye. On the other hand, James Gunn's decision to have some continuous shots felt more natural and smooth in terms of the screenplay. Mr. Terrific's fight scene, Kal-El's laser beaming everyone in the sky, and the anti-proton river leading into a black hole felt smooth and natural. However, Zack Snyder's Man of Steel often felt clunky and jittery at times, as there were no clear transitions from one scene to the other. Therefore, I preferred Superman's cinematography over Man of Steel. Well, this was a tough call to make. I mean, both directors have done a remarkable job in terms of cinematography for Man of Steel as well as Superman. Zack Snyder's fight scenes felt somewhat unnatural and forced, as it was often a barrage of punches and kicks until they picked him up and threw him to a different scene set, not to say that it wasn't bad. But, considering that Superman's fighting scenes shouldn't feel clunky and should have a smooth progression, the fight scenes in James Gunn's Superman are better than Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. We're in the end. Rachel Brosnahan's impactful role in Superman will boost her profile for Apple TV Plus's show, benefiting both her career and the show's viewership. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. The Superman actress recounts a moment when James Gunn was motivating the actors to be prepped up for the role. In an interview with Film, Brosnahan told how Gunn got them to intensely think about their character's depth. She said, "Gunn just forced us to think a little bit more deeply about it. There are certain things that you enter these fantastical worlds, and sometimes the impulse can just, rather than, what if it were real, to be like, well, that's true, and maybe not go a whole lot deeper than that." This thing might have shaped the actress for her future endeavors in acting, while also setting the tone for Rachel Brosnahan's career. All these points lead to one learning: that when you work with a man who looks beyond conventions and is ready to take risks, the team gets inspired and hyped up not just for the role in the film, but also in their respective careers. I watched Superman, and I do not know how much appreciation is too much appreciation for the film. One-in-class wonder, director, creator, and producer James Gunn pulled it all through in terms of visualizing, production, acting, and whatnot. The creator has set himself apart in the media and proved that anything and everything is possible when given heart and soul to the process. Now, with Presumed Innocent Season 2 on the cards, Brosnahan, who will take the place of the legendary Jake Gyllenhaal, will be an interesting aspect to watch. Rated at IMDb with 7.7/10 and 79% Rotten Tomatoes, this thriller drama explores the themes of politics, conspiracy, deception, and bonds, which will further test the actress's abilities differently. With an increased star power after garnering attention from Superman, Brosnahan's involvement in Presumed Innocent will boost the show's viewership and ranking. Moreover, Apple TV Plus is likely to capitalize on this for the show's marketing. Also, Rachel is not just starring in Presumed Innocent Season 2, but is also an executive producer of the series. In short, while her role as Lois Lane won't change the storyline or character of Layla Reynolds in Presumed Innocent, it will significantly impact the reception of Brosnahan's performance and the visibility of the show itself. It's a strategic casting move that benefits both the actress and the streaming platform. From the very start of her career, Rachel Brosnahan has managed to keep up with the audience's expectations with her versatility. First, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which required vibrancy, wittiness, and an ambition-driven approach, to Superman, becoming inquisitive, intrigued, yet brave about everything, she transformed seamlessly. Eddie Gathage's Mr. Terrific was amazing in Superman, and now James Gunn might be ready to give Mr. Terrific the spotlight he deserves. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. James Gunn is shaking up the DC universe, and it looks like he might have found his new hero. That's right, I was absolutely thrilled to watch David Corenswet as the iconic Superman, but now the spotlight is on Mr. Terrific. After making a bold impression in the recently released Superman, the character played by Eddie Gathage could now be heading for his own show, as per the Wall Street Journal. This report mentions that Gunn is exploring a spin-off series based on characters introduced in the movie. And yes, Mr. Terrific is said to be a front-runner in that list. The movie has already stirred a good conversation among fans, who are loving the fresh faces in the superhero lineup. Among them, Mr. Terrific definitely stands out with his powers and abilities. In the comics, Michael Holt, civilian identity of Mr. Terrific, is known as the third smartest man, after Lex Luthor and Bruce Wayne, in the DCU, with 14 PhDs, and has mastered advanced tech like T-spheres. While the original Mr. Terrific, Terry Sloan, debuted in the 1940s, it's Holt's modern version that truly connects with today's audience. James Gunn is shaking up the DC universe, and it looks like he might have found his new hero.